Welcome, and thank you all for joining us this evening. My name is Denise Jorgens, and I'm the Director of International House here at the University of Chicago. Tonight's program, Can We Influence the Future of Russia?, is held in partnership with the Center for East European Russian Eurasian Studies, the Forum for Free Inquiry and Expression, the Posen Family Center for Human Rights, the Pearson Institute, the Chicago Center on Democracy, and the International House Global Voices program. A bit of background on International House. This past academic year, International House celebrated an important milestone, our 90th anniversary. International House of Chicago was founded by John D. Rockefeller Jr. in 1932. From the day International House opened its doors, our mission has been to promote cross-cultural understanding, mutual respect, and friendship among students and scholars, and on the part of the people of metropolitan Chicago and the broader communities that we serve toward individuals of all nations and backgrounds. It is through the International House student life experience and our internationally focused public programs, such as this evening's event, that International House is dedicated to transforming people's lives for a better world. This mission is further extended through the work of the International House's Worldwide Network, which is currently an organization of 16 international houses on 4 continents. We invite you to join us here at International House during the remainder of the academic year for the many, many of our Global Voices program. This is I think the 4th program this week, in our Global Voices Performing Arts and Lecture Series programs. Information about all of our internationally focused public programs is available on our website and in the entryway. And we encourage you to sign up for our weekly e-bulletin. On behalf of the Global International House community, I want to welcome you again and thank you for joining us. And now I'd like to invite Professor Faith Hillis to formally introduce our speakers and to begin our program. Thank you.
Good afternoon. We're very glad you're here. My name is Faith Hillis. I'm the professor of Russian history here at the university and the director of the Center for East European, Russian, and Eurasian Studies, also known as CERES. This event, it was the collaboration of many entities, and in addition to those just mentioned, I want to add a few more sponsors who've made this possible. Thank you so much to the Mali Center for Institutional and Legal Integrity, and also lead support from Chicago's Forum Zell Speaker and Event Series, which comes from the Zell Family Foundation. This evening, we are extremely honored and gratified to have Lyubov Sobol with us, asking how and if we can influence the future of Russia. Sobol is one of the most prominent Russian public figures advocating for the democratization of Russia and opposing Putin's policies. In 2019, she was included on the BBC's list of the 100 most inspiring and influential women around the world. She has conducted journalistic investigations into corruption in Russia while serving as a lawyer for Alexey Navalny's Anti-Corruption Foundation. Currently, she leads anti-propaganda projects on YouTube, attracting hundreds of thousands of viewers. In 2023, Sobol was a senior fellow with the Center for European Policy Analysis, and she is currently serving as the George F. Kennan Scholar at the Kennan Institute in Washington, D.C. Ms. Sobol will speak for about 20 minutes, and then will be joined in conversation with Konstantin Sonin. Sonin is the John Dewey Distinguished Service Professor at the University of Chicago Harris School of Public Policy. His research interests include political economics, conflict, development, and economic theory. He has held fellowships at Harvard University's Davis Center for Russian and Eurasian Studies, Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, and was a visiting professor at the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern. He has served on the faculty of NES and HSE University in Moscow as well. In addition to his academic work, Sonin has been writing columns and op-eds and a blog on Russian political and economic issues. Please join me in welcoming Lyubov Sobol to the stage.
Hello, everyone. I am thrilled to be here today and would like to thank organizers of this event, as well as my friend Konstantin Sonin, for the warm welcome and the opportunity to speak before you. I usually like to scare my Western audience by telling them that for the first time in their lives, they are seeing a real-life terrorist. It's funny because I am indeed on a list of terrorists and extremists in Russia. And let's get serious now and speak about my crime. It was very simple. I spoke out against the criminal policies of Vladimir Putin. The Russian authorities opened the first criminal case against me for organizing rallies in support of the Russian opposition politician Alexey Navalny, and the latest criminal case was initiated against me for talking on YouTube about the bloody massacre in the Ukrainian Bucha. Supposedly, I was spreading fakes about the Russian army, which is criminally punishable in Russia. I worked alongside Alexey Navalny for the last 13 years. Together, they created a pro-democratic movement, fought against corruption, and informed the public about the crimes committed by those in power. My anti-corruption investigations got millions of views on YouTube, which of course infuriated Putin and his subordinates. In 2021, I had to leave Russia because otherwise I would have been imprisoned, isolated from the outside world, and unable to continue fighting for a democratic Russia. Do I believe that Russia can be a democratic country? Absolutely. In all the elections, whenever the police and political overseers from the Kremlin loosen their grip, people vote for opposition representatives. While the democratic opposition is not allowed to participate in elections, people have still found ways to make their voices heard. Sometimes they vote for communists instead of the official Putin candidates as a form of protest. For example, let me tell you about the elections for the governor of Primoria. It's the most remote territory from Moscow, and in 2018, an opposition candidate won there. Then, in Moscow, they cancelled those elections and overturned the results. The same happened at the opposite end of Russia in the large northwestern city of Petrozavodsk. In 2013, a liberal female candidate, Galina Shirshina, won there. She studied reforms and fought against corruption. This couldn't help but attract the attention of Putin's overseers, who decided to put her under political pressure, but not in a direct way. So they filed criminal cases against 7 members of her team. And under such political pressure, she was forced to leave her post. In other region, far from the capital, in Khabarovsk Krai, the opposition candidate won the governor's election, but was later charged with a criminal case and put in jail. As you can guess, it's not like he committed any real crime. It was against, again, cruel political pressure and a message for other governors to keep their mouths shut and follow the Kremlin's line. In the large Russian city of Yekaterinburg, the opposition candidate Evgeny Roizman won the mayoral election. What do you think happened next? A criminal case was also initiated against him. You may never heard the names of these cities. So why I'm telling you these examples? To prove, time after time, Russians chose democracy and vote for opposition candidates. But then the security forces, the FSB, and the police, under Putin's leadership, come and take people's choice away, imposing their appointees and those who resisted either killed, imprisoned, or expelled from the country. A recent study by Project, a Russian publication in exile, showed that more than 116,000 Russians have been subjected to repressions in the last years of Putin's rule for their world or participation in protest actions. And according to researchers, this is just the tip of the iceberg. They believe there are many more cases of repression and pressure on Russians that have gone unreported. According to a study by the newspaper Novaya Gazeta, in just the first 2 months of the full-scale war in Ukraine in 2022, 16,000 official cases were opened against Russians. These figures mean that more than 16,000 people basically decided to become kamikazes, despite the risk of ending up in Putin's prison for up to 15 years. They took to the streets to protest, were detained, interrogated in police stations, and convicted. For sure, protesting in Europe or the US is not the same as protesting in Russia. These are incredible acts of bravery in a dictatorship. However, Putin has a tight grip on all information flows and media in Russia. He controls all television and radio channels, as well as major print media. Therefore, protests in Russia's regions are often invisible to the rest of the world. Now, as I've described the current situation in Russia, let's move on to the question, what can we, the civilized world, do to stop the war in Ukraine and the Putin's regime? Firstly, everyone has to realize that Putin is a threat. Putin's Russia is not a reliable partner, but a threat to the entire civilized world. He is a real mafia boss and leader of an organized crime group that first seized Russia and is now trying to occupy Ukraine, killing people around the world, as it was with Litvinenko, who was poisoned in London, or Khankashvili in Berlin. Putin is a criminal who seized power in Russia and holds it against the people's will, not a legitimate president. Democratic countries should have long recognized Putin's Russia as a terrorist state. Moreover, it's very important to distinguish between the Russian people and the Putin state. People who strive for democracy should be supported, whereas Putin's regime must be pressured with sanctions. I know that for a long time, the US authorities turned a blind eye to Putin's crimes because the prevailing idea was that after the Cold War, Russia became a reliable partner of the West, and the US was the winner of the Cold War. It's hard to admit, but it's time to do it. The US victory was not final. Russia, 13 years later, has again become a threat to global stability in Europe. It's also important to understand that any conversations about saving Putin's face are harmful and help him. Putin's Russia and the Soviet Union are not the same. The current political regime is personally loyal to Putin. When he is no longer in power, this regime will inevitably collapse. I am sure that the next president of Russia, whether the one from the current system or from the opposition, does not even matter, will have no other choice but to turn to the West, try to negotiate, and lift sanctions imposed on Russia. It's crucial to make sure that this moment comes faster and Putin leaves, so the next leader of Russia does not only talk about democracy, but is also really aimed at implementing democratic reforms and building democratic institutions. To achieve this, members of civil society and the leaders of civilized countries should work together. Russia must become a reliable and predictable partner. Now, all efforts should be focused on Putin losing this war in Ukraine. This must happen as quickly as possible, otherwise the problem will not be solved but simply transferred to the next generations of politicians and our children. Again, I want to repeat, many people in Russia still look towards Europe, so it's essential to make a clear distinction between the regime and the people. It's important to continue to put pressure on Putin's regime while also helping ordinary Russians. Russians should not feel that Europe or the US have turned their back on them. That's it. I appreciate your attention and time. Thank you for having me here. And from the bottom of my heart, I wish peace and victory to Ukraine and freedom to Russia.
Again, welcome to the University of Chicago. It's great to have you here. It's great to watch you on YouTube, but it's great to welcome you here. I wanted to ask you about some people, some good people, and thank you very much, and about some bad people. So, about bad people first. So. Everybody now knows in the world the name of Yevgeny Prigozhin, who is, of course, a criminal who played a huge role in the criminal war that Putin wages in Ukraine, his troops played, mercenary troops played an important role. Then he led a mutiny, and it was not a small event. It's like a historical event in Russia. They controlled for a day one of the largest southern cities. They shoot 6 planes. The Putin forces had to blow up 2 major bridges to stop the Prigozhin's advance on Moscow. But you actually met Yevgeny Prigozhin in his previous capacity because you were the lawyer who fought for the Russian, basically school kids, because Prigozhin was, among other things, owning a firm that somehow brought food to all all Moscow schools. Could you tell us something about this encounter? Because it was very brave to do this even then.
No, thank you very much. Prigozhin, he tried to kill my husband, ex-husband, near our house in Moscow, but he survived. And Prigozhin, he is a war criminal. And yes.
But that was before he was a war criminal. Before that, we knew him as someone who feeds Putin and who owns a company which is a major contractor for the Moscow government. And then you basically led the charge against him that they are basically poisoning kids because they charging the Moscow government a huge amount of money and provide food of a very low quality, right?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, okay. So the thing is that Lyubov faced Prigozhin and his mercenaries long before we recognized that Prigozhin actually has mercenaries and is a war criminal.
Maybe I was the first person who showed his face publicly, because nobody knows about him.
Yeah, that was the first expose. So it has become clear that he is a major figure. He is a major Putin's subordinate who runs an empire which included a huge armed forces and operates with hundreds of millions of dollars. But Lyubov was the first person to expose part of the financial part of this empire.
Yes, we conducted 2 huge investigations against him about his corruption. He earned a lot of money from Russian budget for his criminal stuff, I don't know.
But now we probably know that Putin was financing these mercenary armies in Africa and then in Ukraine through these fake contracts with the Moscow government, right?
Yes, yes. It's one of the ways to finance them, yes.
Was it scary? I mean, initially?
It's a tricky question. I think that I'm not afraid of being killed or poisoned, but yes, if you investigate corruption in Russia, it's very dangerous. As I told before, my husband was attacked near our house in Moscow, and so it's very dangerous for anybody who try to put in public some cases about Putin's corruption or his close allies.
Okay, that was about bad people, but I wonder, could you tell us something about Alexey Navalny? I mean, it was a huge loss, and people, I think, in the West, they wouldn't easily realize how much Alexey meant for all of us, as both a political leader, as a friend. But I knew him for almost 20 years, but we interacted like 2 times a year, exchanged emails, so I never knew him like really personally. But you worked for him for how many years? For
13 years.
Yeah, for 13 years. Yeah. Could you tell us more about him?
First of all, I miss him terribly. He was not only my boss, but he was my close friend. He was my mentor, he was my coach. And yes, I worked with him for 13 years. We have an office in Moscow, and I was forced to flee Russia in 2021. But before that, we worked at the same office, and I miss him terribly. I miss his humor, his intelligence, his kindness. And I remember one thing that after one successful investigation, I was told him that I'm little Navalny. And he replied that, no, you're a big Sobol. So he was very supportive. He always supported me and everybody in our office and in Moscow, in Russia. So, yeah.
So, do you think there will be someone who could replace him? This probably will take years because he was a major figure in Russia. So that's why Putin ordered to kill him. But do you think there will be a similar figure in the Russian opposition?
I think that it could be done by Yulia Navalny, a widow of Alexei. So yeah, she stated that she is going to continue his work, and I believe that she can do her best. Yeah.
I understand that this is basically asking about what your plans, but what would you advise, like Russian opposition? What Russian opposition could actually do in these terrible circumstances? Like our friends are in jail if they're in Moscow, or people are, if they were in Russia, other people are exiled, other people are killed. So what could the opposition do?
I think that the main thing is not to give up, continue fighting against corruption, against Putin, against war in Ukraine, continue fighting for pro-democratic future of Russia. And many people were forced to flee Russia, and now it's very easy just to say that never in Russia never will work out. But I think that it's meaningful not to give up, and if you are from Russian opposition, you can run your own project. And I know that many people launched their own journalistic, human rights, anti-war projects abroad, in exile. You can support financially other projects from Russian opposition. You can support them by sharing information.
Okay, we know from political history that sometimes people who were in opposition in exile, they play a huge role in their country politics afterwards. Vladimir Lenin is an obvious example, but actually there are many examples, and it's not necessarily connected to people taking power by dictatorial means. For example, in countries of Northern Europe, like in Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, they have very successful politicians who recently were born outside of the country, then came to the country when they became free of the Soviet Union and became successful politicians on their own.
There are many examples, like in Lithuania.
Yeah. So now my question. I'm pretty sure that Putin will die or will be removed, and there will be possibility for us. Okay, no leader has ever succeeded to live forever, so he will die. So suppose this moment comes and there is a possibility for us to come back to Russia. I could teach in a university, but would you be able to work as a politician with those people who were, I don't know, some minor Putin figures today, some local assemblymen now who are not protesting against the war, even supporting the war? Would you be able to talk to them?
Thank you for your question. It's a very interesting question and difficult one. but I think that the majority of Russian people, they don't support Putin and his regime. They keep silence now because they're afraid that government can put them in jail. So, but as I see it, I think that 1/3 part of Russian people supports Putin now. 1/3 part of Russian people supports opposition, and other people, the rest of population, just prefer to stay out of politics and to do their own business and not to think about a lot about politics in Russia. So it's a minority of Russian people who supports this war. So yes, I think that.
So it will be possible to work with them, right? With those people who are now in politics, they support the war because you cannot be in Russian politics there today and not supporting the war, but they will be happy when Putin is gone as well.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So I wonder what will be their attitude, but we will see. As we've discussed, there were a lot of cases in which people who come from abroad, if they were able to live decent lives, participate meaningfully in the discussion of their countries, they played a big role in their country futures. So now let me change a little bit the topic. As one of the major leaders of the Russian opposition, you obviously have met a lot of Western politicians, European, American. I could imagine that they're different. European, they have different politicians. In the United States, there are very different politicians. Do you think that people in general, in Europe, in the United States, that politicians understand what they're dealing with, in the sense of the war, what they're dealing with Putin?
Sometimes, but not often. But as I told before, it's essential not to say that we should try to save Putin's face, that he is just a politician, he's an ordinary politician, he's an evil, he's a war criminal, he's a mafia boss, he's a terrorist.
So you're saying that in Europe there are politicians who do not understand this?
Sometimes not, yeah.
So you've met politicians who do not understand what they're dealing with, and you think that this is because of lack of information or because of some, I don't know, ideological stance?
It's difficult questions. I don't know. I think that we should ask them, but sometimes people don't understand how that Putin, he is a mafia boss. He's not an ordinary politician. He's not like a European politician.
Yeah, I know this feeling. Like long ago, I read in history books how difficult it was in the 30s and in 40s to explain in the United States how dangerous is Hitler in Europe. Like right until Pearl Harbor, basically a lot of American politicians, they just didn't understand that this is existential and this will eventually have to be a confrontation. So they believe that you just accommodate some Hitler demands and then, or let him do something in Europe, and then it will end up well. But it didn't. I
think that the Biden's administration, they understand very clearly that Putin is a threat, but in Europe, not.
So you think that Biden administration understands better what is happening?
Yes.
Do you think that the Biden administration should do more to stop the war?
I think that they're trying to do their best. I'm not an expert in American politics, but I think that Biden's administration, they tried to stop this war and to help Ukraine win this war.
Okay, so this is about stopping the war. But do you think that Biden administration could do something specifically to help Russian opposition beyond stopping the war in Ukraine, beyond Ukraine winning and liberating Ukrainian territories? Do you
I think they're helping a lot, and there are many foundations in Washington D.C. and they give funds and money to Russian opposition, to some NGOs from Russia, and they are helping pro-democratic movements from Russia. So they are helping a lot now.
And as a leader of Russian opposition, do you think that your voice is heard by Biden administration?
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Okay, now a more tough question.
For example, Biden met with Yulia Navalny, widow of Alexey Navalny. So yes.
Okay, you've talked obviously when you worked in Moscow to a lot of different people. So now suppose that in November the Republican candidate Donald Trump prevails. The prediction markets give him 50% chance. So are you prepared to talk to the Trump administration to persuade them to continue the policy of containing Putin, arming Ukraine, helping Russian opposition?
Yes, I think that we will try to speak with his administration and his allies. Yes, we will try to do it.
No, I'm just wondering what kind of arguments are you preparing to talk to?
I think that we should stop Putin now, because otherwise it will be a problem for our children, for other politicians. So we should do it now.
So basically emphasizing the risk of doing nothing, right? So you will be emphasizing that if you would not stop Putin, you will have to stop
It would be a problem in future,
later.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, just I hope that you're, like, as a political economist, I know that whatever I prefer be the outcome of the United States presidential elections, the chances right now are about 50-50, and actually it might be that there is some advantage to former President Trump. So I hope that people are prepared to talk to the Trump administration as well as they're prepared to talk to the second Biden administration.
I hope so. Yes, I hope so too, that the next administration will continue to put pressure on Putin's regime. Yeah.
Okay, we should have mics in the room so that those who want to ask a question, please line up, and we will have an opportunity to do this. Okay, so you are happy with what the Biden administration does. Do you expect more from, I don't know, American academia? Do you want us to understand better what is happening?
I think that it's a question for you.
Oh, I mean, ask a professor what is not good with academia. I'll have a long list. There are a lot of things to study. No, I know you're a politician. You were a politician in Russia. Now you're a politician in exile. You will be a politician when you return to Russia. Do you expect something from academia?
To be honest, I think that academia should be out of politics, some kind of.
You hope?
I think that, yes, it should be like this, but it's my opinion.
Okay, but isn't it...
You should just observe and study, but not be
No,
involved.
I understand that academia is not being involved, but do you think that the general public they understand what's happening in other countries. So do you think that we teach our students well, that we inform them well about what's happening around the world, specifically in Russia?
Actually, I don't know.
Oh, okay. So, but when you encountered a student and graduate of the University of Chicago, they didn't look like uneducated, not understanding what is happening in Russia.
Again, I don't know.
I mean, it's the University of Chicago. You could say what you think. We are not.
We are not in Russia.
I plan to say that you are not on the East Coast or the West Coast. Here, at the University of Chicago, you could say whatever you think, including that what you think about the University of Chicago.
Again.
Okay. So, sorry, these questions perhaps too tough.
Yes.
Okay, so any questions? Please.
Yeah, come to the mic.
Just come to the mic and ask, but please introduce yourself and then ask a question.
Sergey Kuchko. I am a first-year student at the Harris School, and I have one question for Lyubov and one for Konstantin. And my question for Konstantin would be that you are comparing Putin to the existential threat that should be recognized along the lines of Hitler. And I know that many Jewish scientists devoted their lives to prevent Hitler from acquiring nuclear weapons, so that the United States would get it first, because they were convinced that Hitler would use those weapons if they come to his possession. So my question to you, do you believe Putin, posing the same existential threat as Hitler, is prepared to use nuclear weapons? And a question for Lyubov. I know that Navalny several times made statements that Crimea should remain part of Russia once it was annexed in 2014. Do you agree with this position of Alexei? Do you believe Crimea should remain Russian? And if not, what is your position, and what was Alexei wrong in this question? Thank you.
Okay.
Let me start first.
I thought that you got two questions, because the first question whether Alexei ever said what was said, and the second question, do you agree that Crimea should be returned?
Alexey Navalny, he was against illegal annexation of Crimea. His phrase that Crimea is not a sandwich, I think that it's pretty bad. I totally disagree with this phrase. But his message was clear that he was against this illegal annexation. And as my position, I think that Crimea is a Ukrainian territory. It's not a Russian territory. It was illegal occupation in 2014. So I think that I answered your question.
Okay, my question was also a little bit loaded. I'm trying to remember who of the people who worked on the nuclear bomb, who was specifically Jewish and who was not. Certainly, I'm pretty sure that Enrico Fermi was Italian, but who worked here at the University of Chicago on developing nuclear weapon to stop Hitler. I think basically what I think about Putin, that it's like Hitler, who is stopped in 1938. So Hitler stopped before annexation of, before occupation of Poland, after annexation of Austria, and after the occupation of Czechoslovakia, but before his attack on Poland. So I think here, I think it's fair to say that he poses the same threat. It's not fair to compare him to Hitler in some sense, because he has not committed that kind of atrocities that Hitler and his henchmen committed. That's not fair. But I think that he has not committed these atrocities. He committed small atrocities because he was stopped at an earlier stage, and that's the difference. So like a criminal who was prevented of doing more crimes earlier than Hitler.
Not a student.
So sorry, but you are still someone, even if you are
Someone,
not a
but
student.
not a student.
Please,
Okay, no, that's fine.
Okay, so Alexey Navalny was one of the bravest people that we know, and when he was poisoned by Novichok, he returned to Russia after this, when he improved a little bit his health, and he knew that he will be at least imprisoned and maybe dead. So could you envision this as suicide in time, that which has have some meaning, and it's not by itself suicide but it was planned as suicide, because Putin, as we know, never mentioned his name when he was alive, but when he was dead, mentioned his name twice.
Thank you. That's certainly a challenging question. No, the question is: do you think that Alexei thought that he is going to die as a result of his return to Russia?
I think that he understood very clearly that there is a possibility of this, but it wasn't suicide. He returned to Russia because he believed in Russia, in the Russian people. So, and it was his choice, and as a member of his team, I should respect it.
But Jan Palachuk also believed in Czech and burned himself.
No,
so it's not mutually.
Sorry, but what do you want from me now?
Thank you. Could you give others to the opportunity to ask questions? Your question was clear, and I think Lyubov answered, no, it was not self-immolation as with Jan Palachuk.
Hello, thank you for coming today. My name is Henry Smith. I'm a second-year undergrad. I study national security and foreign policy. The question of whether the West, can help Russia implement a democratic state is the same question that was asked in 1991, except back then the United States was still unipolar, the Russian state was incredibly weak, and there was still a strong democratic movement inside of Russia. None of these are true today. On top of that, although Putin initiated the war, it's clear the war follows logically from some of the underlying interests of the larger Russian security state. So I guess my question is twofold. First, if moderate or democratic politicians gain power when Putin goes, but the security state still remains, is this a Russia that can truly be cooperated with or integrated into the West? And second, given that the chances of instituting a democratic Russia were much greater 3 decades ago and we still failed, how realistic is it to expect we succeed this time around?
Okay, thank you very much for these questions. I don't know whether you closely follow what the Russian opposition intellectual community does these days, but basically there is a huge discussion, like every Russian intellectual opposition politician is involved in a discussion of what went wrong early in the 90s. So your question is about, like, it torments many people. So the question is, like, suppose Putin is dead, but FSB is still there. All these people are still there. Is there a chance of democratic Russia? That's the first question. The second question, what was wrong in 1991? I mean, there was a tremendous desire to help Russia to become democratic, and as we know, it somehow failed.
Oh, thank you for your question. I think that yes, after Putin, when Putin leaves his power, it doesn't mean that Russia will wake up as a democratic country next day, and the next leader and his team should conduct real reforms. First of all, reforms of security forces. It's the #1 priority, I suppose so, because now FSB, it's like a KGB in Soviet Union,
KGB.
KGB in Soviet Union, the same buildings, same people, or their children or grandchildren. So the first priority is to reform the security forces, police, and yes, I think that after Putin, we will have a chance, and we should not miss it again, as it was in the 90s.
Okay, and there was the second part about what was...
Empty
what
talks
was,
about democracy doesn't work. We need real reforms, real steps, KPI, and as a business project.
like, could you say, like, what the West did wrong in the 90s? So, like, they wanted to help. I mean, like, in the KGB fantasy world, they tried to, I don't know, occupy Russia and take Russian natural resources, but in the real world, they tried to help.
They tried to help, yes. They tried to help. They gave a lot of money to Russian authorities, to Yeltsin and his team. And so I think that we don't need any money from the West in the future. We can do it ourselves. I think that it's a difficult question, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Boris Nikolai. I'm a third year studying economics, and my question would be, I know that you left the Anti-Corruption Fund in 2021, but if that's okay, if I could ask a question about that. Yeah. In 2023, the ex-head of the Anti-Corruption Fund, Mr. Volkov, was caught exchanging messages with some European leaders, stating that some specific oligarchs in the UK should not be sanctioned. And later he had to step down from his position afterwards. And my question is, as a Russian myself, what are the next steps for the Anti-Corruption Fund to regain their, let's just say, authority in the eyes of the Russian people? And what are the next steps for the Anti-Corruption Fund in doing so and regaining and rallying people behind them?
Thank you for your question. You are right. I'm not in the Anti-Corruption Foundation International now, but I identify myself as a member of Alexey Navalny team still, even after his death and murder. And as you asked about Volkov, I think that it was a huge mistake, and I was against it. And I stated it clearly on Twitter, on my social media accounts. And what should be the next step? I think that we should continue, the Russian opposition should continue fighting against Putin's regime. And we run a lot of projects. For example, media projects to communicate with Russian audience. And we have huge numbers who are still watching us inside Russia. It's millions of Russian people every day. So we should meet with Western politicians and do our anti-war projects, anti-war coalitions, and other things against this regime. So not to give up and to continue fight for Russia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Otabek. I'm a student at Chicago Booth School of Business. I have two questions for Lyubov. The first one is, you mentioned earlier that there is like a third of population in Russia that supports the war. That is still around 50 million people. How do you see this large chunk of population change after the war ends and the Putin dies or is replaced? And the second question is, I'm from Uzbekistan. Do you think Putin will stop in Russia, or is there any threat for other countries of former Soviet Union like Uzbekistan?
Could you repeat please the second question?
The second question is there a threat to other former republics of the Soviet Union like Uzbekistan? So if Putin is successful in Ukraine, would he invade other countries, specifically Uzbekistan?
Yes, I don't know. I'm not sure about Uzbekistan, but I think that Putin is a threat for Europe and for Baltic countries, for Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And for, what about your first question is how can we communicate with these people? I think that we should the second thing, the first thing is to conduct the reform of security forces.
The question will be about people who who
and the
support
second
the war.
question, the second step should be to stop propaganda on Russian television. So it influences Russian people a lot. So if you stop propaganda on Russian television, people will change their minds. I suppose so. And it would be very fast.
I think we do not need to
was in
explain it
90s,
to
yes.
everyone, but when we talk about Putin's propaganda, do not think that this is Fox News or MSNBC. It's like you switch from Fox News to CNN, and there is the same thing. You switch to MSNBC, and it's the same thing. So propaganda is that you basically do not have access unless you go through some motions on the internet to any kind of non-propaganda content, just for the sake of those who think that propaganda is just Fox News or
I think that
Breitbart.
I think that everybody knows that 24/7 on Russian television they are telling that Ukraine is an enemy, the Western world is an enemy, and it's day after day. So Putin occupied all television TV channels, all radio stations, all print medias in Russia. So you should stop this propaganda. You should tell people truth, and they will change their minds. It will be difficult, but I believe they can do it.
Thank you.
Hello, Lyubov. My name is Sergei Shokarev. I'm visiting lecturer of Slavic Department, University of Chicago. First, I want to express my admiration for your activity, for your life, for your work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And my question, so, what do you think? Can the opposition make a breakthrough in the fight against Putin, and why and when it can be?
When opposition
when there will be a breakthrough, and could there be a breakthrough?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't know.
Thank you.
If the German government offers you a passage in a sealed wagon into Russia, then would you go? Not there yet, right?
Not today.
Okay, I wish you make this breakthrough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Galina. I'm the university alumna. And following up on your statement that you think that the Biden administration has a better understanding of the threat that Putin is compared to European policymakers, what do you think about the Congress? It seems like the Congress is slow making official statements compared to, for example, a PASE resolution that we saw yesterday. I'm sure you're aware of it, right?
Yeah.
It's a very strong resolution. And there was another one last year. Well, the only thing I know about the Congress making steps on it is that there's a resolution in the Foreign Policy Committee now, I don't know if you ever heard about it. It's about declaring Putin legitimate based on the election results. And since you're at Keenan, have you had any discussions there about like why is the Congress so slow compared to European? Do they not have such a good understanding about over that, or is it the strong reason why they're so slow? And if this resolution ever comes to voting, and if it does it have any kind of perspective or chances?
I think, first of all, I'm not an expert in American politics.
Yeah, I wanted to make an advertisement saying that we actually have a department of political science that works on these questions here.
Yeah, but we are working on it. We have some meetings in Washington, D.C., in Brussels. So we are doing our best. But I think that it's not a question for me, it's a question for American politicians. So
you haven't had any discussions at Keenan about it, no?
There are some discussions. Last week I took part in the discussions about Karamurza. It was in the building of Congress. There were some representatives, so they're trying to do something, but I think that, yeah, they may be too slow, Putin's too fast.
Could I ask, we have time for questions, but could I ask you a question? Of all the Russian political leaders, you probably have faced like most of the vitriol, like online vitriol. So Alexey Navalny has never actually faced this kind of vitriol. So people do not like your good looks, your bad looks. They constantly discuss how you look like. Do you think that this is a problem of being like a Russian female politician? It's about you, the same question about Yulia Navalny. Do you think that Russia has a problem with female politicians?
I think that the main problem is dictatorship. And for example, during elections for Moscow Duma, for Moscow Parliament, I was not allowed to take part in those elections, but Ilya Yashin, Dmitry Gudkov, Ivan Zhdanov, and other leaders from Russian opposition, they were not allowed to take part in those elections. So I think that it's not about that I'm a woman. It's about that if you disagree with Putin's politics, you're not allowed to be in Russia.
But it seems that like now Putin politics is very much about including other things, role of women, because it seems that they are going closer to like forcing women to stay out of the workplace, to encourage women to be always pregnant. Certainly there is like a huge homophobic campaign on behalf of Putin's government. I mean, it's far more than in many countries nowadays. Now there are people who are arrested for just having a gay club, just operating a gay club, right? So do you think that this is a derivative of this is because of Putin's dictatorship, or it's because something is deeply wrong with Russia?
It's a very interesting question, but I think that you don't have any basic rights in Russia. You don't have any political rights, and yes, like an ordinary dictatorship, I suppose so. Okay. Like in Iran.
But the thing is, let me tell you, there are a lot of different dictatorships, and there were a lot of military dictatorships with junta and martial laws, which were not that ideological. This kind of the ideological push by the Putin's dictatorships is actually now, it's like in the really in the range of a quite unusual thing. So Iran might be a proper comparison, but Iran is also sort of an exceptionally ideological dictatorship.
I think that Putin's regime not so much united because of any of some kind of idea. It's united because of corruption and because of money. So
you
I
think
think it's just empty talks. It's just they try to find new enemy every year. It could be the U.S. It was Obama. It was Biden. It was Merkel. It was a fifth column like us, Russian opposition, pro-democratic opposition. It was Ukraine. Right now it's LGBT activists. Next year it could be somebody else. So they try to find enemy and to push energy of population out and far from Kremlin.
Okay, great. Go on.
Yeah, my question is actually related to that. Obviously, I wanted to ask, from your point of view as an opposition leader, I was wondering about the mainstream opposition's relationship to the movement for LGBTQ rights in Russia, and if possible, could you please speak to the opposition's stance on LGBTQ issues, and if you have any strategies to speak out against that overt discrimination that you've said is part of Putin's regime?
We spoke out about this problem and we spoke out about many problems. So we cover a lot of topics on our YouTube channels, for example. So we are doing this, yes.
So do you feel that the pushback is stronger? Because I write, of course, my blog and my social media, they're not nearly as popular as yours. But whenever I write about LGBT topics like transgender rights, all these things, I feel a genuine backlash, even among those people who would be sort of anti-war and anti-Putin.
Maybe, but I remember 90s. I was very young lady that time, but I remember that we had a very popular pop group, Tattoo, and they pretended that they are lesbian. They are not, but they pretended, and everybody was okay with it.
Okay, everybody was happy.
Everybody
Tens
was
of
happy.
millions
Yes,
watched them.
Yes, huge audience of fans of this or that group. So I don't think that Russian population is so patriarchal.
Yeah, I think this is actually a strong argument, because if you look at the younger generation of singers who remain extremely popular in Russia, they write songs on LGBT issues. Some of them belong to or identify with the community, and they seem to be very popular. I believe that there is nothing like wrong with the Russian young generation, but I'm actually surprised that Putin's ideology is now so squarely anti-LGBTQ.
Yes. And now there are a lot of bloggers on Instagram, for example, which is called the Undesired Organization in Russia, but still there are a lot of people there, and there are many bloggers who are openly gay people, and they have a huge audience there. They are admired by many people in Russia, so audience is okay that they openly say about their private life. So I think that it's not the problem of Russian population, it's a problem of Putin's regime.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Marina. I'm a second-year postdoc at the Department of Neurobiology here. So my questions will be about scientists. So after beginning of the war, it became a little bit harder to get visa to US, for example. If you Russian and if you work in biology, engineering, and stuff like that. So do you think U.S. government should lose their rules for kind of getting all these smart people, or I don't know how to say that, to bring them here and to make the baseline smartness of the Russia lower. I don't know. It's a question for you both.
The question is, there should be,
yes,
should be this used as a weapon?
My advice for American politicians?
Yes, the question is about American politicians. Do you think that there should be laxer rules for letting smart people running from Russia into the United States?
It's a difficult question because I think that I support another idea. I support the idea that Europe and the US, they should allow some visas for visiting, not for come and stay, but for visiting for young generation of Russians. So they should have rights to enter Europe and the US easily, just to see how people are living here. Because on Russian television, they talk a lot that Americans, they hate Russian people, that they want to destroy Russia, that they want Russian collapse, and ordinary Americans, they hate Russians, but it's not true. It's not true. I think that they don't care about Russia a lot here, but every time I asked, where are you from? I replied, from Russia, and they say, great, that's it. So I think that it's a good idea just to change the rules of having visas for young generation, so they can come and see by their own eyes that that Americans, they are not enemy. They are not enemies, and so yes.
Yeah, I believe there were some programs like that before, but Putin mostly closed them. So my next question was about more like, okay, people can choose. They want to stay in Russia or to go to work somewhere else and then come back when, I don't know, government will change. Should they change these rules? Well, maybe you can.
I don't know. Certainly, I've heard as a political economist that President Trump is in favor of the policy to let smart people in. Specifically, he didn't mention Russia. He mentioned, I think, Switzerland and Norway as the desired sources of new people. I think that in general, the American government and American universities, they actually did a great job. A lot of people have been helped, and not only, I'm sorry, biologists could find a job, but people, historians, political scientists, philologists, linguists, they're in kind of a more difficult situations, and I'm proud that the University of Chicago helped such people to find, of course, more Ukrainian, of course, but also Russians. I thought biologists are okay.
No, it can take years to get visa here.
Yes, but still, think of a historian, and yeah, this will make.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Denis Pedish. I am coordinator of REDA, Russian America for Democracy in Russia, in Chicago. My question for Lyubov is, how do you think we can deal with persecution activists in Europe or United States, and how big is the issue in Europe, and what can we do to protect ourselves? Because you have a big experience and accident with Leonid Volkov in Europe.
Yes,
My question is,
I was poisoned in Berlin last spring, so I think that it's It's a difficult question, and I don't know. So in the US, I feel safe here, but in Europe, not. And you could be attacked in Europe if you are in a position leader, like in case of Leonid Volkov. He was attacked in Lithuania, where there was a summit of NATO one year ago. So, yes, there are a lot of concerns.
There is a big pro-Putin community here in Chicago, and they very actively. So, my question is.
I'm not sure about the big pro-Putin community.
Yes.
I've seen pro-Putin people, but I never seen them making a demonstration of 50 people.
No demonstration.
I think that they're not so active. They're just sitting in their kitchen and.
I don't know. The Russian community in Chicago had dozens of events with 50, 100, sometimes more people participating against the war against Putin to commemorate Navalny. So I'm not sure that there are many pro-Putin people. They would have organized. What?
Sounds good to be true.
They would have organized a meeting if there were a lot of them.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alessa Pushnia. I'm a third-year undergraduate at UChicago. My question is, what is the current plan of the opposition, and would you say you're just relying essentially on Putin's death?
So, is there a plan beyond Putin dying? Could the opposition do something? Of course, there is a lot of information, a lot of counter-propaganda that the opposition does, but could be done something more than that.
Could you clarify, please?
I'm trying. Okay. Could you repeat the question?
What is the current plan of the opposition, and are you just relying on Putin to die, essentially?
What is our plan now? Or?
Yep. Current, yes.
Against Putin? What we are doing against Putin?
Okay. As I understand, the question is, we understand that we hope that Putin will die and then build a new democratic Russia. But is there any plan in the case that Putin is not dying? Okay.
Yes, I think that yes, I think that we should not wait and hope for his dying. We are working every day as an everyday routine. We are running a lot of projects against Putin. As I told before, I think that every opposition leader now, they have their own media projects, and they communicate with a huge Russian audience. There are a lot of, and I think that we are witnessing a flowering of Russian opposition now, because a lot of people were forced to flee Russia, and they are living now in foreign countries, in different countries, in Europe, in the US, in wherever, and they have freedom, and they have money, because a lot of foundations provided fundraising and some funds for them. So a lot of new projects were launched during the last 2 years. Human rights projects, journalistic projects, anti-war coalitions. So we are doing, we are not just sitting here and hope for Putin death. We are doing it as everyday routine.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Max. I'm from St. Petersburg, Russia, and I'm activist of Voice of Free Russia. And I want to ask a question to you, Lyubov. My question about there's a lot of fights between Russian opposition leaders in exile right now. Some Russian people think that it is only hurts the movement and helps Putin. Of course, sometimes argue is a way to solution. But is it the case in the situation we are in? So, in your opinion, we are in a, can, like, argue is a good thing right now, or it is a bad?
Okay. Thank you for your question. I think that Russian pro-democratic opposition is pretty united, because we all are against Putin's regime. We all are against his war in Ukraine. We're all for European path of development for Russia. And yes, we have some discussions within Russian opposition. We have some disputes, but it's okay, because only under dictatorship you don't have any discussions. But in any democratic movement, like here, in the Democratic and Republican parties, there are a lot of discussions within these parties. So it's okay, and this is politics. But I think that we are pretty united. We have a common enemy. It's Putin.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you. As for me, I'm collaborating with many other politicians, like businessman Mikhail Khodorkovsky or Dmitry Gudkov, a former member of Russian State Duma parliament. So I have a lot of friends inside Russian opposition.
Hi, Lyubov. Hello, Konstantin. It's an honor to ask questions to you. So, since Russia is already 2 years in a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, parts of Ukraine are already inserted in Russian constitution. As you mentioned, 1/3 of Russian population supports war, 1/3 prefer not to participate in politics, and given an increasing economic reliance of Russia on China, it seems like only a miracle should happen to help Russia becoming actually a democratic state, not posing a threat to the West in the next at least decades. So how does this miracle looks to you? I would love to get opinions of both to you, or in other words, what scenarios that leads to that state, to a democratic Russia, is still possible? Thank you.
May I start?
Sure.
Yeah. I want to tell you about one survey. It was conducted in 2021, and it was about. It was conducted in Russia. It was before the full-scale invasion in Ukraine, and they asked Russian people, "Do you think that Ukraine should be an independent state or should be united with Russia?" And the majority of Russian people, they replied, Ukraine should be an independent state, the majority. So now it's, we don't believe surveys because it's people just are afraid to speak honestly about politics, about the war in Ukraine. But I think that most of Russian people, they are against this war anyway.
Okay, but don't you believe that 1/3 of population sincerely support war, or do you think that's like a figure?
No, I think that they believe that NATO wants to I don't know, destroy Russia. They believe that Putin he's trying to prevent aggression of NATO. But I don't think that they believe, the 1/3 part of Russian population, they believe that Ukraine Nazi or something like this talks. I don't think so.
Okay, thank you. Oh, it was a question to me.
Yeah,
Okay, I do not believe.
For both of you, yeah.
I do not believe in miracles, and I'm not sure that Russia will become like an established, mature democracy in my lifetime, but I will be happy if after Putin is gone, Russia is on path to a democracy, no longer a threat to its neighbors, spends its money not on security and armaments, but on the improving living conditions for its people and compensating the damage that is done to the occupied areas of Ukraine, which will be a part of Ukraine then. So if this democracy will be imperfect, but moving in the right direction, I will be already happy with this.
Okay, that would be great. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions.
That's going to have to be our final. Oh, one more question. All right, one more question.
We've been talking about Putin and blaming Putin, of course, for this most recent war, but this is not Russia's first attempt to dominate its neighbors. Russia's been very imperialistic. I think a lot of Russian people feel that Ukraine is the same as Russian. And I just don't see, I'm glad to know that not all Russians feel that way. But would you please comment on the centuries of domination, not just under Putin?
It's not just a Putin, it's honest remark, yes. But as I told before, just 2 months before the war started in Ukraine, the full-scale invasion started by Putin and his subordinates. It was the Putin who started this war, and the Russian people, they answered during their survey that Ukraine should be an independent state. It should not be united with Russia. It was a very clear message. And I think that, yes, it's not the first war. But I think that majority of Russian people, they just thinking about their ordinary lives, just to how to prepare their children for school, how not to lose their jobs, how just to earn a little bit more money, and just this stuff. And not just to occupy. We should occupy new territory.
I mean, are we Russians worse than other empires? British were imperial until they were not, until they stopped. Like Russia invasion of Ukraine in 2022 is about like if Britain would invade Bangladesh or Pakistan in 1970, right? And say that how many British blood was spilled on these shores to have the empire for 100 years. The same thing with French. It was actually a tormenting experience to get out of Algeria. The republic in France have fallen because of the divisions, but somehow all other great nations were able to get rid of these imperial ambitions. So for me, I hope that this is the last imperial war of Russia.
I hope it is too, but just based on history, there wasn't just one attempt to occupy its neighbors. There have been many. And I'm very grateful for your support. I'm very grateful for the things that you've been doing, for being here and for having this wonderful discussion. But I just don't think the stripes will change. And I hope I'm wrong.
It's okay. You don't believe in a democratic future of Russia. I believe. That's okay.
Yes, and I hope you get that. I really do. But I'm just pointing out that.
So the task for you is clear. Just prove that this is wrong. Build a new Russia, and we'll prove that this is wrong. And in 50 years, we'll get back to you.
The last word for this evening. Thank you so much to Ms. Sobol and to Konstantin Sonin, and to all of you for asking such thought-provoking questions. Thank you and good evening.